everyone, this is Nikki Burnett, and I wanted to make a video to show you the differences in my beginner's edition and my advanced edition Grayscale coloring books so that you can decide which one you would like to purchase. So I'll walk you through the books and show you the main differences. This is the beginner's edition. This is the cover. This is the back of the beginner's edition book. And this is the advanced edition cover. So you can see that that's one of the first differences between the books. I did use the same witch on the cover. Her name is Priscilla, but I decided to make the covers in different color schemes so that you could tell the books apart easily. I did the beginner's edition in shades of green and brown and red, and the advanced edition is done in my favorite color scheme of shades of purple and teal. So that's the front cover of that one. And here is the back cover. Both of the back covers are formatted the same. They show the 20 images that are included inside the book with some features there at the bottom. So I wanted to jump right into the main difference between the books, and that is the lightness and darkness in the grayscale images. And I'll show you the back cover so you can just sort of see them side by side. You can see that the beginner's edition has much darker grayscale images, and the advanced edition has much lighter grayscale images. So let me flip to one of the pages in the book so you can see. Here's Priscilla, and again this is the beginner's edition. You can see that the grayscale image is nice and dark. The shadows are very dark and the darkest areas are pretty much black, and then the light areas are very white. There's a very high contrast between them. Let me just compare it to the advanced edition. This is Priscilla in the advanced edition. So you can see it's much lighter. The shadow areas aren't quite as dark. And just overall it has a much lighter quality to it. Let me show you them side by side. There we go. The advanced edition is on the left and the beginner's edition is on the right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why I decided to make two books. When I set out to make my grayscale coloring book, I initially was only going to make one book. And I was struggling a lot with deciding on how light or how dark to make the images because I feel that they both allow for their own techniques and are fun for different reasons. So I discovered that the best way to solve it was to come out with two books. So that's what I did. And again, the beginner's edition features the darker images. I would choose the beginner's edition if you are new to shading, or if you want to do a little bit of your own shading. You can also do that in the beginner's edition book. I find that it's nice for both techniques. You can choose to pick one color and color that same color over an entire area, and the grayscale image does most of the work for you. You don't have to do any shading, and the image will still have a lot of depth once you're done with the coloring. So for instance, if you wanted to color her dress purple, you'd just pick one shade of purple and color that same color over the entire area, and all these little darker areas of the grayscale image will stand out and create the shadows for you. You can definitely use advanced techniques in the beginner's book. Even though it's called beginners, that doesn't mean that you can't use advanced techniques. So for instance, if you wanted to color her dress purple, you could choose darker colors of purple to put in the darker areas of the grayscale image. And the more colors you use, the more vibrancy your final coloring will have. And then alternatively, with the advanced edition of the book and the lighter grayscale images, you will find that you'll have to do a lot of shading yourself. So I would recommend the advanced edition for someone who enjoys shading their work and would like to have a little bit more more color options as they're working. You'll find that you'll have to darken the shadow areas quite a bit and also darken different areas of the image, such as her pupils, her eyelashes, or the outlines, to really make your piece pop and come to life. I just wanted to go back to the beginner's edition. It is really fun for coloring over because you don't have to do any of the shading yourself, but the downside is that it can be a little limiting with your color choices. For instance, this area is always going to be very dark. It's never going to be a light color, and the bottom of her dress will always be very dark. You could never make it a yellow, for instance, because it's just so dark, and that's why I wanted to come out with the beginner's edition as well, because you could choose much lighter colors for these areas if that's what you wanted to do. So if you like to have more control over your piece, I would definitely go with the advanced edition. But if you like the thought of the image doing a lot of the shading itself, then I would go with the beginner's edition. I myself prefer the beginner's edition. I still find that it has enough flexibility with advanced techniques to add in some additional colors. I still find it really fun, and it just provides so much depth to the finished coloring. But the advanced edition is also very fun and definitely allows you to do more advanced techniques. So that is the main difference between the books. I'll touch on some other slight differences. Each book does contain some introduction text where I go over different tips and techniques and the basics of grayscale coloring. In the beginner edition of the book, I do cover basic colored pencil techniques and basic marker techniques. I go over both beginner and advanced methods that you can use inside the book. The advanced edition has the introduction text as well, but this area is a little different. I do have little mini tutorials, I guess I would call them, little walkthroughs for colored pencils and markers. Both are advanced techniques, where I talk about how you choose a light, medium, and dark shade of a color. And with the advanced technique, you use the grayscale image as your guide when you're placing your colors. So it assists you less with shading, but instead helps you when you're coloring to know where to place your different shades. So I go over all that on these 2 pages, and also talk about using mixed media in the book. So those are how the introduction areas differ. The books both have a lot of the same features. They both have these tester sheet pages that are designed so that you can test out your colors and your media choices. There's 2 small images inside the book for each big image that's in the book. And the tester sheets are both formatted with the correct levels of grayscale for each book. So you'll see the beginner's edition does have the darker versions, and the advanced edition does have the lighter versions. They both also include a colored image, and these are the colors that I used on the original painting. So you can decide to copy my colors if you would like, or create your own. And the tester sheets are all single-sided. So if you create a color scheme that you like, or if you want to use the color scheme that I chose, you can easily remove those from the book and use them as a guide while you're coloring on the big image. So I'll just flip ahead here to where the coloring pages start. And this feature is the same in both of the books. I put a black border that extends all the way to the edge of the page. And I did this to create a nice clean edge while you're coloring. You will find that you can color right over this and you won't even see your pencil marks or your markers. And that way it'll be nice and clean once you're done coloring, and it will create a nice, almost of a matted print look once you're done coloring. So it's really nice for display purposes. So both books have that feature. Both books also include the same 20 images. They're all single-sided, and the books both have the same exact paper, but you will notice, if you happen to have both versions, that the paper has a slightly different feel to it, and that is because of the printing process. In the beginner's edition of the book, there is more printing on the paper, and it creates, I call it a satin finish. It's not quite glossy and it's not quite matte. It's somewhere in between. It's a very smooth paper, and it's very pleasant for markers or colored pencils. In the advanced edition, again, it is the same paper, but it doesn't have as much of that satin quality to it. It's still very smooth. I'd say it might have a little more tooth or texture to it, but it is a very smooth paper. So that is another difference that I wanted to make you aware of. And I think those are the main differences that I wanted to highlight. So hopefully that will help you to decide which book you wanted to purchase. If you are the type of colorist that prefers to copy your images onto your own preferred paper, or you think that you would like to adjust the levels of grayscale, I am totally fine with that. I want you to enjoy my book, so if that's what you would like to do, that is fine. I would recommend that you purchase the beginner's edition of the book if you think you're going to be adjusting any of the levels of grayscale. It does have the darker, or what I call the base images, so you'll find that they'll be much easier to adjust than the lighter versions of the book. I also had a lot of people say when I announced that I was going to come out with the beginners and advanced editions, is that they would be purchasing both of the books, and they'd be working their way through the beginner's edition, learning how to shade, and then once they're feeling up to it, try the advanced edition so that they can use more advanced techniques. And that is really exciting to me. I never envisioned my books being a learning tool, so that was very fun for me that you all might consider doing that. So that's another way you could use the books as well. I have a whole section of my website dedicated to grayscale coloring. I would love for you to come visit. It's www.grayscalecoloring.com. That's gray with an E. I'll put the link below. I do include all sorts of tutorials and walkthroughs and supplemental material specifically for this book. And I also have a coloring gallery where I would love for you to share your finished colorings. All the information is there on how to submit your images. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you are interested in a more in-depth look at either one of these books, I do have separate videos where I go through all the pages and talk about the features in more depth, and I'll put those links below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I really hope you enjoy my new grayscale coloring books.